interfering with getting your seller?
It does a couple of things, and I want you to, part of this conversation is working on your mental preparation. Be prepared that the selling licensees are coming from a place of urgency. When the market tightens, pressure goes up, and they get fear, just like the buyers and sellers do, okay? So when you are able to give everybody an equal shot, to say here in writing, here's a multiple offer acknowledgement. I want everyone to acknowledge it, that they have to submit highest and best by 5 o'clock on Thursday, blah, blah, blah. You're keeping emotion out of the deal. Now, it's still there, but you're minimizing that. And you're also setting a standard of integrity that they all know what to expect from you as well. They know that you're going to give a fair shot. So one of the scenarios that came up, and I'll just throw these out there to you and see what you think. So I was talking with one of our top licensees, and he said, yeah, really interesting situation. He said, buyer brings an offer to my seller. We negotiate, I counter, the seller counters, buyer counters back. So this is, going on a couple days. 10 o'clock at night, 10:30, our licensee is on the phone with the seller. They make some adjustments on a counter to accept it, and they, on the phone with each other, say, okay, it looks like we're good. This should work. Okay, got the house ready. He does not call or notify the other agent because it's 11 o'clock at night by the time they get off the phone. What happens first thing next morning?
Another offer. Yep.
That's $15,000 higher than the offer they've been negotiating back and forth. Now, our guy's a good guy, and he's got a big heart. He goes, I feel badly. He's like, I feel like a jerk, like going back to this person. And I said, let me tell you something. That buyer chose to leave themselves exposed.
Yep.
They made a choice, a conscious, volitional, adult choice to leave that property on the market and active all during that time period. They could have accepted any offer that any of the counters that you came back at. They could have countered higher. They fully acknowledged and knew that this was possible. So you are representing your seller when you go back to that agent and say, hey, we were working on your counter. In the meantime, another offer came in. You guys all have till 5 o'clock today. Please acknowledge. Here's the form. You're now in a multiple offer situation, highest and best by 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Interesting thing that happened. Guess what happened with him on the other agent, the one that brought the second great offer? She was livid. She was really angry. She said, we knew it was a multiple offer. We brought a really strong offer. How dare you not just accept our offer? So what's the right response to that?
Sellers.
It's the seller's choice. What else?
Email says there's multiple offers from your final.
You knew there was a multiple offer situation. Guess what? The other buyer didn't.
Right.
They were, because they weren't in one, right? You had information that the other buyer did not have.
No.
So I want to be fair to all parties. And by the way, Ms. Smith, how would you feel if you were on the other side? If you were the other buyer's agent, and then I came back to you and said, hey, sorry, another offer came in this morning, we're accepting it. Would you want to be treated that way? No, you would not. So I'm being fair to all parties. And in the meantime, what's he doing for a seller? Representing them very well. Go ahead.
We recently had a transaction with a certain realtor who represents a tremendous number of foreclosures and actually had a mutually signed agreement on a property. And the next day they called us, even though it was signed by both parties, and said, well, we never turned it into the REO company. We just got another offer today that's higher.
How's that feel?
And I said, excuse me? And she said, well, technically, it doesn't have their attorney's signature on it, so it doesn't count. And I was like, all right, so you guys remember that. I mean, you gotta, but what do you do if it's like a $50,000 lot?
Yeah. How much energy do you put out?
How much energy do you put
But
in?
that's, I mean, there's so many things. And so I really would advocate that your mindset at representing your sellers always needs to be, you also, many of you will represent buyers. Treat that other side the way that you would want to be treated, and at least given a fair shot. Jen and I have a situation, and I'm just going to kind of work through some of these situational things, and hopefully it'll keep your brain cranking. You had a listing, and had made an appointment the following Saturday. This was on a Friday, to write an offer with a buyer at 11 o'clock Saturday morning.
Yep.
In the meantime, what happened Friday night?
We received an offer from another agent, and actually I love him to death. And
Great agent.
Great agent.
Great agent.
Thanks, Jeff.
And I told them, and I had told them when they had called earlier, I said, well, I've shown the home to one party and they think they may write an offer, but I'll let you know I don't have anything yet. And so, yeah, they called and they actually they left me a voicemail because I was talking to the clients I was writing up. And then an email came in, and before I opened it, because the top said offer, and I was like, because I knew I was writing this other one, and so then I called Jen.
So I want you to make sure you know what
Yeah.
resources and tools you have available, because this worked really well.
It did.
And I want you to think about profit sharing for a second. Not to make it all about profit sharing, but these are great agents
Really good
that are
agents,
awesome, that are another company that I would love to have at Keller Williams one day. And what she did was she made sure that bridge did not get burned, because they walked away from this whole, they did not get the offer, and I'll walk it through in a second, but they walked away. Thank you so much for how we were treated during this process. You have Shayna, you have Evan, you have Butch, you have Debbie, you have me. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resources right here that any of us will happily serve as the recipient of the offers for you and present them to your seller. Gladly. You can go back and say, you know what? Don't even send it to me. Send it to Butch. Send it to Jennifer. I sat there Saturday afternoon at the kitchen counter, received the offer from the other associate, received her offer. She presented it to me just like I was as if she was only working for the buyer. Here's why, here's what's good, here's what's great about this offer. She had no idea what the other one was. She brought the offer. I was able to review them, called the seller, went through all the offers, talked them over, and theirs was significantly better. I did the same thing Friday night, emailed back the other agent, said please acknowledge that your buyer is aware that they are in a multiple offer situation and this is their highest and best offer. If it is not and you intend to make changes, please let me know before 10 a.m. Saturday morning. He sent back, we are aware, this is our highest and best, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's amazing what just treating somebody fairly can do.
You always, always, always want to know that you're writing the other offer because it's multiple offers.
Well, that's exactly what she did. She said, I'm writing it, so I'm gonna step out and I'm gonna have somebody else present the offers to my seller. Go
And you
ahead.
know, the really interesting side benefit, in addition to keeping the relationships with other realtors, was my seller was floored. Like, first of all, he was floored that I would step away from it because he goes, aren't you giving up your advantage? Because you can double side this. And I said, I am, but that wouldn't be fair in my mind. That's my decision. You know, legally, yes, I can do this, but I just don't feel right about it. And then the other part was he was floored by Keller Williams, that Jen would step in and help me with that, and there weren't any issues there, because he was like, well, now do I have to pay her too? You know, I mean, that was his thought process. And so he was
down on to
exactly, you know, but he was
You'll get the
impressed
fee
with
sheet
that.
later.
Yeah, but he was impressed with that I was able to just very quickly, and especially on a weekend, be able to bring somebody else in, handle it appropriately, save all sides, and now we've got, how many of his listings? I think 4. So, I mean.
Oh, the seller?
Yeah. So, I mean, paid off in spades.
You can also have the other agent present, because I've done that a number of times where I've written one and have them present to the seller as well.
You can absolutely do that. I don't like to give up control too much. To me, I start relinquishing control when I'm letting another agent sit across the table with my seller, and I don't like that. That's just my personal, and if you're comfortable with it, it's a great idea. I know for me, I want control, and if I can't have control because I'm writing it, I'm way more comfortable asking Butch to have control or asking Denny to have control because I just trust
I know
that
Jamie Harvey and I,
how they're going to operate, or Shayna, or you know.
Jamie Harvey and I met in the lobby of a hospital
Okay.
and looked at, I showed him my offer, he showed me his offer, and then we went and presented to my seller who was in the hospital.
So let's talk about what happens. Let's talk about.
You got one hand on the right.
And Joe. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you getting oxygen? You didn't hear what I just said? Someone increase that
Just
word.
sign here.
Hit it. So let's talk about what happens when with the offers that don't get accepted. What's the right protocol with the offers that you receive that do not get accepted? Stock Up has been like the
Poster child?
amoeba, the petri.
Stop it back to the first year for
Yes, for the last 2 years. What do you do? What's the appropriate way to handle all of the offers?
Have your seller sign their
Well,
rejection.
Okay, let somebody else have a turn.
First thing is to ask them if they want to stay in backup position. That is, if the primary contract terminates, do they want to be
We were
able to stay
hoping
in
someone
backup
would
position?
say this.
If they say yes, then you don't necessarily, right, you just have a written agreement that they agree, you do an addendum, they agree to be in backup position, but you don't terminate the contract.
Okay.
That way you can simply write an addendum and everything still applies.
Does everybody understand what he just said? Why would you not want to procure backup offers? What did we spend 2 weeks talking about the last 2 weeks? Deals falling through, right? If we know that there's a propensity for deals to fall apart, and our job is, I know you're sick of hearing me say it, to represent our seller, wouldn't it be a wise idea to get backup offers? Now, they may go away, they may find something else, and that's okay, and that happens, we don't totally get that. But how much more secure is your seller gonna feel walking into a transaction knowing that you've procured a backup offer? Go ahead.
1 in 7 contracts in our team DFTs, and that means home inspection, some issue. Maybe it's a lender issue, maybe it's something like that,
Who knows?
but whatever it is, it's, you
Just
know what,
happens.
when you have that, it's like Christmas.
It is. Were you gonna say something, Matt? Oh, I thought that was a.
Let's say, do repair amendments always work?
Yeah, happily, everybody's
If the
happy.
seller just says, no, I thought I was selling it as is, and you're like, I'm sorry, was you not part of all those 30 conversations that we had?
Now, let me say something. If you've never done this before, if you've never been in a situation where you have multiple offers and you want to try and get one in backup, go see Denny or Butch or Shayna. Ask them, you know, we have 3 broker licenses sitting here. Grab the first one you can. Get advice on how to appropriately do it, okay? Make sure you're saying the right things. Make sure you're not promising something you can't deliver. Make sure you're doing it correctly. Okay, now let's say for the ones that don't go in backup, or they don't choose to stay in backup position or whatever, what's the right procedure? Okay, there's actually, you're not terminating anything.
Right.
You don't have an accepted contract. What happens, what's the last page of the purchase and sale agreement?
Decline the
Does not
offer.
accept this offer. There's a signature line, and you send it over. We had one of our agents get her integrity called into question by another agent, said, I want proof that you even submitted my offer.
I'll give you his name later if anybody wants. We can just
Now,
write him.
I saw the text messages. I'll be honest with you, the guy was a jerk,
No.
the way he came across, because he wasn't, he really was calling integrity into question. And that didn't feel good on the other side. But on the other hand, we do have an obligation to show them that we did present, right? Go
On the
ahead.
other side of that, I've used this example a number of times. There's one pretty highfalutin licensee in this town who I called on 3
Stop
times.
talking about me in front of my face.
3 times, called and says, my seller rejected your offer, did not sign it. And I said exactly that.
Yeah.
And I said, because if you can't prove that, my next phone call will be the real signature.
Well, because if you're using an escalator clause, if you're representing a buyer and you're in a multiple offer position and you're using an escalator clause, what's the key word that needs to be in that?
Verifiable.
Verifiable, right?
Yep.
It is absolutely your right to ask for verification, so they don't just,
Affidavit for the
Based
broker.
on net to seller,
Yes.
Again,
Thank
affidavit.
you.
yeah, even if you want an affidavit
That's,
from the
well, that's what you
broker.
can get. 'cause
Yeah.
The other thing's confidential.
Yeah,
The offer's confidential.
Yeah.
But you can get an affidavit from the broker.
go ahead.
On the multiple offer situation, I like to talk to my sellers and ask them if they want me to convey to the realtors that are representing those buyers, if there is a priority of things that they're gonna be looking at
Yeah,
on
what's
there.
more important to you,
What's more
time or
important, exactly.
money or, yeah.
Because realtors and their clients want to know what the most important things are that will get their offer
Sure.
accepted. And if a buyer's willing to step up and plate and do those kinds of things, oh, you are willing to pay for the appraisal up front, or pay for the appraisal and not be reimbursed.
Maybe earnest money,
Um,
non-refundable, or
The
closing
the home warranty,
yeah.
the home warranty will be paid by the buyers and so, all those different kinds of things. But a lot of times, it could be a preference for a title company that you wouldn't think come into play.
Like you were saying, minor little things that could be a difference.
And for an offer that I just had, a multiple offer situation on a condo, elderly lady didn't want to deal with repairs, and so that came into play. And even though the prices were going up because it was a multiple offer situation, ultimately at the end of the day, it was the realtor that was willing to make an as-is offer
Right.
without even having a home inspection.
Yep.
And that realtor was actually starting to pay for things because there were things that came up. And he's like, he came back to me and said, hey, can we adjust commissions? Like, no, you did an as-is offer.
You can.
Yeah.
Feel free.
And then what Kevin was just saying, that having a good relationship, being able to call people back, multiple offer situation, 4 or 5 offers, and then the buyers backed out after the appraisal was done. It's because their family dynamics changed. They had more bodies that they had to have in the home, and it wouldn't, the house or the condo was too small. and then you're kind of feel like you're starting back over with square one, losing all that time, and then the urgency can feel like it's gone, and those multiple offers aren't really necessarily multiple offers anymore. So can you still really do a good job for your client? And if you haven't secured that backup offer and those things, then you kind of really feel bad that you haven't gone to that
Sure.
extent.
Sure.
So those are all really important things.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to kind of talk to you about is how you have the conversations, and I'll flip over to the representing the buyer side for a second. You know, because you kind of took me exactly where I wanted to go. The questions that you ask in doing your research, I think sometimes we get caught up because we're running and gunning and we're going real fast and we go write the offer, and we maybe don't take the time to dig a little deeper and get that information. Because, I mean, that's absolutely accurate. I'm gonna go back to what we said earlier. 3 things that matter to the seller: most amount of money, least amount of time, least amount of hassle. Or, let's go back to Phyllis's situation. I have nowhere to go. There's all kinds of things that matter to the seller. When you're asking those questions, representing your buyer, and let me just remind you of a phrase that we use all the time: let silence do the heavy lifting. If you will ask a question and then shut up, that other side will tell you everything you need to know almost always. Sometimes if you just say, you know, tell me what's really important to your seller. Is it time, you know, a quick close? Is it the ability to lease back? Is it repairs? Tell me what really matters to your seller. Then be quiet. And even after they answer, maybe be quiet again. Guess what they do? Fill the gap. It's uncomfortable when it's quiet. Well, you know, they really don't want to pay closing costs, but gosh, we haven't found a house for them yet, and we're still looking, and so, oh gosh, the ability to stay in the property after might be really important. Okay.
Part of the advantage to that, when you're trying to talk to your clients about a lease back, and of course all buyers want to move into it, you know, we've resolved this multiple times by explaining. One is that if it's a move up for the seller who's currently leasing back, they're living in their own house, they got top dollar for it, they're leasing it for less than what their purchase is going to be on their next house. Meanwhile, the buyer who's buying that, even though they can't move in right away, guess what they don't have for the month that they purchased it in the following month?
Mortgage payment.
A mortgage payment, but they are getting a daily prorated amount. So they can actually make money by not moving in right away.
Right, right.
So when you show them the money and go, actually, I can get you back this much money before you move into the house, and by the seller, you save money, you know, in that short period of time. Pretty soon, then, you know, when it comes down to it, listen, there's a price tag on just about anything.
Right, win-win, but it turns into, if you can illustrate the win-win. Jen?
Well, and I think it goes back to the relationships. I think they're more and more important in a tight market that I've found because, you know, and we talked about this months ago. I have a list of, I know how Dar wants her contracts written. I know how Mary Cox wants her contracts written. And I'm not saying I'm sacrificing what my buyer wants. I just know, do I really care if we use Deb Stout? Not really. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't. Does my buyer have a preference?
What
No.
hill do you want to die on?
Right, exactly. You know,
yeah.
so knowing that ahead of time and having those relationships and having those good relationships, I want a multiple offer more often than not because of that.
Well, this goes back to the conversation last week about the fact that the other realtors are your customers as much as your clients are a customer level. You know, you want to have incredible relationships with people. I'm not saying you forego your principles or anything like that, you know, and represent your client, but absolutely building those bridges will go so far to help you do your job, which is to represent your seller or your buyer. Yes, sir.
2 things. Just because you have a multiple offer situation doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a lot of really great offers, even at or
Sure.
above asking price. I had a client that I was writing an offer for, and they were feeling really reluctant to make an offer because there was going to be 3 other offers.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you know, maybe we'll just sit this one out. I said, you know what, put your best offer forward. You never know what's going to happen. Nobody made an offer even close to the asking price.
Well, or even make an offer. A lot of times people will take that philosophy and they run away and say, you know, like even the one we were working on that you were calling me about on Delridge, you had probably 4 people that said they were going to write an offer, but when it came down to brass tacks and they found out they were multiple offers, my buyer doesn't want to go there.
Yep.
And the second part of that is, I was writing an offer for a client on one of my own listings, called the other realtor, explained multiple offer situation, and my client was wanting to make a low offer. And I just went through all the details. I said, he said, well, can't you tell me what's the other offer is gonna be? I said, no, I can't. I can't do that.
Never know.
And so I wrote an offer. I wrote an offer that was less than the asking price, and we were 2 days on the market. Multiple offers were likely to come in, and they still didn't want to make a full price offer. I said, okay, well, just know that this may be your only chance to write at this price. And presented the offers. My offer was clearly lower, at least $3,000 or $4,000 lower, and so I knew what was going to happen is my offer would be rejected for my client, and the other one would be accepted. Except when everything was presented to sellers, the seller said, we will not accept an offer that's VA, and the highest offer was VA. We will take the lower offer, and then I had to go back and explain to the other realtor that my offer, listing realtor, was accepted in yours, even though yours was higher, and explained what happened.
Financing, right.
So, you
Yeah,
just
I mean,
never
little
know
things like
what's
that.
gonna happen.
If you know that you've pushed the price,
Yeah.
and you've really pushed the price, and you're a little scared about whether the appraisal's gonna come in, and you get one offer that's VA and one offer that's not, most people are gonna walk away from the VA, even if it's a couple thousand higher, because the risk is too great. It just is risky. I wanna go back to two things you just said. Number one, be very careful the words you say when you are talking to buyers representatives that are going to bring you an offer. So what I mean is, don't say, we have multiple offers if you don't have multiple offers. Somebody telling you we're gonna write, how many times has somebody in this room ever had an agent say, I'm gonna write, and then you never hear from them again? I'm not alone, right? So don't say that, because you may be giving away, you wanna draw them out. I mean, you're wanting to create urgency, and I get the intent, because I've done it the wrong way before. Oh, we're gonna get multiple offers, and then all of a sudden I turn around and everybody's gone, and I'm like, well, what? I scared them all off, because I never really got multiple offers. So don't say we have multiple offers until you have in your hand. And you can even be clear about it and say, you know what, so-and-so is saying they're gonna, I've got 2 people threatening to write, but July, you and I have been doing this a long time, you and I both know, that doesn't mean anything. If I don't have it, if I get it in my hand, I'm gonna let you know, but at this point, there's threats, but nobody's put anything to paper. Just don't run people off.
And that's a great thing, because that makes the Hindu tell their buyers, someone's thinking about
Sure.
writing, we need to do it now.
Sure, we need to move, yeah.
Another risk, send it back, say you have 3 offers, and you send them all 3 back for highest and best. There's a good chance you can run all 3 at once.
Sure, they absolutely
Because they
can.
don't want to be in a multiple offer situation.
They absolutely can. As long as they've been notified that they're on a multiple offer, you don't have to go send them back to highest and best. Just as long as they've all been notified and given an opportunity to make any changes if they want to make changes. The other thing that you said that I want to touch on is talking about, gosh, what was it? I just lost my train of thought about that. We just talked about how you said, it'll come back to me. Going to the listing side, going back over to the listing side, and this runs off of your comment as well. Really getting good, if you're not great at running a net sheet, get really good at running a net sheet. Because, I love what Phyllis said. There can be a $65 difference. And if you don't know how to really crank out a great spreadsheet that counts for everything, prorations, taxes, go see your lender. Lindsay can make a heck of a cookie and hand out a banana, but I'm telling you right now, she can run an awesome spreadsheet. Go see Janice. Run a to-the-numbers spreadsheet.
Or title companies can do it for you.
Well, I was gonna say Janice, yeah, Peterson, and Integrity, sorry, I should qualify Janice, not just some random person. Go get help. Go talk to another realtor in the building and say, hey, I really wanna work on this. Because there can be things like the FHA fees at the end of the month. There's all kinds of little stuff. And if you're not great at those net sheets, that's something to really perfect and get the best offer for your seller.
Jen,
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to say that I really recommend that you go to the lender, the title company, rather than do it yourself. Because that's why you have those relationships. They are the experts at it.
Let the expert do their job. They're gonna do it at the end anyway.
And if you have an inexperienced agent, they may write a VA offer saying that the buyer's going to pay the escrow closing fee and the lender doc prep fee. We know that they can't.
Right. They may write something that they don't, absolutely, absolutely. Give me some thoughts, any feedback or comments on this?
One more thing in terms of trying to be a little more aggressive in a multiple offer situation, having the discussion with your clients, especially if they need the closing cost assistance, talk to them about premium pricing, that the lender can raise the interest rate to cover some of their closing costs, so they don't have to go in asking for a big chunk of closing costs. Because that definitely is usually one of the big factors that makes or breaks their offer being accepted or not.
Yeah.
And the other thing is make sure with your buyers that you're setting that expectation that they are getting a considerable amount of their closing costs covered, that the seller is already going to be apprehensive about their list of repairs that are requested. And say the seller already feels as if they're covering all this expense on you. Don't think they're gonna go in and fix every little,
Set the
nook
expectations.
and cranny.
Absolutely. Talk about there's 2 stages of negotiating. We can beat them up here. Understand you're not gonna win down here. You just be prepared for, the give and the take. Yes, ma'am.
I learned about 16 years
Ooh,
ago.
a trick.
From an agent whose husband is an attorney, and I was in a multiple offer situation. And this is a good trick. You write on the bottom additional terms and conditions. You say, buyer will pay $100 or $1,000 in the best price, not to exceed.
Oh, yeah, the escalator clause.
Escalating.
Absolutely.
So if you really want that for your buyer, you gotta put that in there. And you gotta make sure it's not to exceed and buyer to verify other offer.
Well, verifiable by, what was the phrase you used?
Net buy.
Affidavit or broker affidavit?
And that is
Well,
net
ROI.
proceeds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and based on net proceeds as well.
Yeah, but
Because
that's,
that other agent, you're trusting that the seller's agent understands that the net may be different, and
Right.
let's just play to the lowest common denominator and assume that they're not necessarily presenting to, you're trusting that they're presenting to the seller net.
and
That's a
that
big leap of faith.
really happens a lot in the Turnitin area and Bootlegger Cove.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And you got attorneys hitting you got everything hitting you, because they're married to them.
Oh,
The
they
only
all are
caveat-
one.
the only caveat on that is that relocation companies and REO banks do not accept escalation clauses. You're
Correct.
offering
And
a
a lot of
flat
sellers
denial.
don't like
Correct.
them. I've actually had sellers turn down escalation clauses because they're like, I just want a good offer. If they're not gonna bring me the best offer, I'm not gonna accept
Right.
it.
Okay, another thing, working with a buyer, just one example, I showed a house that was listed, and it was listed way under price, and the sellers went away for 10 days on vacation, unreachable.
Right. They can't be in the MLS.
7 offers came in those 10 days. And I was,
MLS rules state if the house can't be shown or the buyer,
Oh, it
if
can
the
be
seller's
shown.
not,
If the seller's not
if the
accessible.
seller's
Yep.
not accessible to receive or to transfer within a reasonable amount of time, it can't be on the MLS. You gotta withdraw it until they get back.
Yep.
I remember the other thing I wanted to say to you. When you're working with a buyer and they come into that multiple offer situation and they say, I want to write a lower offer, I understand all the information you've given me, Sean, thank you so much for sharing this with me, but I really feel compelled that this is the offer I want to present. And you say, okay, that's great, it's my job to represent you and do what you want me to do. A question that I've used that really works, and this goes back to their emotion, is, here's what I just want to ask you. How mad are you going to be at me if you don't get the offer?
Yep.
Because I just want to know. And if you can honestly look at me and tell me you're fine with it if you don't get it accepted, then let's go for it. Let's go try and pick this thing up for less than price. And I totally support that. But if you are going to wake up tomorrow morning and call me and your wife is crying and you're distraught and no, we're never going to find a house like this that we like again, then can we just revisit this offer? Because I really need to understand where are we going to be in 24 hours from now. And that's definitely a place to take them into the future. You know, how are you going to feel? Okay, I know we've gone over real quick.
anyway, to finish it, sort of, I was one of 7 offers, and the only reason we got the deal was, the buyer really, really wanted the house, knew it was way under price, we offered to pay the seller's closing costs.
Yeah,
And that's the only reason we got the deal.
it's amazing all the differences. You've got a plethora of resources all around you in this building. If you need help, reach out and ask for them. Next week, here comes the judge. Send your broker questions to me, to Evan, to Shayna, to Butch, to any of us. We'll get it to Butch if you don't get it to Butch. And we'll be prepared to kind of work through some dicey situations. Thank you guys, and I'll see you all at book club.